coming in today and chatting with me about his time at Del Barton, his career, and I think he has some very interesting stuff. So I will just ask you to, state your name and what year you were born.
Yeah, my name is Bob Farrell. I was born in 1946 and grew up basically in Livingston, New Jersey.
And you attended Del Barton, and from what years to what year to year?
I attended Del Barton from 1960 to 1964. I chose it over having stayed at home and gone to Livingston High School.
Yes, your bio here states that you were an average student, but we could talk about that a little later. But your choice, obviously, from the Essex County schools. I thought it was very interesting that in your introduction for the Hall of Honor, that John Tonzolis considered you a Del Barton hero.
Surprised me too.
Do you think that has a lot to do with the impact you had while you were here versus and now afterwards because of your role with the school?
Well, I think it's part and parcel of both of them. I mean, if you read the article that I sent you from the Courier way back that John Dannenberg, I believe, wrote, you can see that I was pretty well respected as an athlete here during my time here. But that was long since forgotten by the time I joined the alumni board, the Alumni Association board 7 years ago. I was just me, and we had started the basketball reunion game. But I think it's the work that I did, what I brought to the Alumni Association that really promoted me, so to speak, and ended up with my induction into the Hall.
And you were very gracious in your remarks at the Hall of Honor, and I appreciate you sending that to me. You talked a lot about the first thing you said in there was the camaraderie that would stand any test of time.
Very true. We still have the fellas in the area. We get here together for lunch, and maybe once every 2 or 3 months. Now I get them together. We can get anywhere from say 6 to 14 guys. Father Gerard used to join us every time we had it before he passed away. But it has withstood the test of time. And when I go out on behalf of the Alumni Association to the receptions, say down in Florida, and run into other people, other classmates who are down there, it's the same type of thing. It's like you just saw each other yesterday. And the conversation immediately turns to what we did here.
Well, I had this kind of the same experience with a college friend, buddy of mine, who was a fraternity brother of mine, who we hadn't seen each other in 20 years, and when we finally met again, it was like we were just seeing him yesterday.
Yep.
But I think that's important because I think the whole concept of brotherhood now, maybe the more up-to-date word for it, it does kind of, I think, stands the test of time. When you were here, you made in your Hall of Honor statement, you said that the monks and lay teachers were, and I kind of combined this, the monks and lay teachers were committed to providing us with a first-rate education under Benedictine principles. And so of those monks that were your teachers and your some coaches, maybe, I don't know, were any of your coaches monks?
Yeah, Father Carl was actually probably the only one.
Okay, so of the teachers that were here, do you have any memorable kind of experiences with them or stories from them and how they helped to shape you into the man you are today?
Yeah, the most prevalent there being Father Rembert. I was in his accounting class in senior year, and I took a real liking to the accounting subject. And he asked me if during my spare time if I'd like to work in the office with he and Mrs. Alvarez, who was his assistant at the time. And I said, sure. So I would go in there and I'd actually post entries in for him into the books, and he'd check them out, and I learned, by the time the semester was over, the year was over in the accounting, I was probably another 40% ahead of the rest of the class, having had hands-on experience with that. And that's pretty much the direction I went when I went to college. I mean, I majored in business administration, but I took 2 more years of accounting in there, and then when I got out, basically most of my career was spent in an audit accounting type relationship, chief financial officer, until I started my own company in consulting.
So other than Father Rembert, you did mention Father Thomas, Father Cletus, Father Arthur, Father Frederick, Father Lucian, Father Adrian, if I may have missed someone there, and of course Father Stephen.
Right.
Some of them were my colleagues when I first got here, which I thought interesting. And anything from any of those guys there, aside from Father Rembert?
Well, Stephen was always, for some reason, very fond of me. Probably because our birthdays were the same day.
Okay.
And Father Kenneth as well. But no, I think he appreciated what I did out on the fields, and the way I comported myself. I was never a troublemaker or anything. And that was very high on his list of acceptable behavior for a Dumbarton person. He was such an easy man to love that it was a two-way street. So he was one, and Father Gerard was the other one. Father Gerard, of course, he was our class monitor, mentor. He was our college placement guy and everything else. And I wasn't sure where I wanted to go, big school, small school, whatever. I just knew I wanted to go away somewhere, just for the experience of it. And we eventually settled on Bellarmine, where actually his brother-in-law then became the president of Bellarmine several years later while I was there.
Well, that certainly is not one of the normal schools that our guys go to today.
No, I'm the only one that's ever gone there.
So it's it's the standard schools that we Villanova, Dartmouth, Cornell, all those. So when I saw it, I was like, well, that's still an interesting school, to go to. When you were here, though, you went on to college, and you didn't play football in college, right?
Yeah, we didn't have a football team.
But you were, as I always say, one of the you don't really see it that much today in 3-sport athletes with the specialization, but you were a 3-sport athlete, and I'm assuming or maybe I'm wrong, that when you went on to college, or were you a basketball guy, a baseball guy, or a football guy? I mean, can you rank those for me somewhere?
Well, my scholarship was for both basketball and baseball.
Right.
Coach Groza created my scholarship because he has primarily a baseball scholarship, because he didn't have any basketball scholarships left to give out. So he created it for me. But yeah, from October 15th, the first day of basketball practice, until the end of the year, the school year, in the first 2 years that I was there, I was never free. I was home for 2.5 days at Christmas, and that was it. Other than that, I had practices or games every day. And it was very difficult to learn how to keep up with your academics at the time, and I learned to do it. Luckily, then Coach Groza left at the end of my sophomore year, and the freshman coach took over as head coach, and not even to be coy about it, I hated the man. He was just very anti northern people. If you weren't from Ohio, Kentucky, Indiana, you just weren't part of the basketball genre in his mind. And I just told him, I said, I'm not playing basketball anymore. So I just finished playing baseball my last 2 years.
But in your own mind, would you consider yourself a football, basketball? I mean, how did they rank in your mind as, like, I'm a football guy, but I also play basketball?
Baseball.
Or were you?
Baseball was primarily my first love.
Okay.
I always put that first. I mean, I graduated school. I had several offers to sign that I didn't take. Then I played semi-pro ball for another 5 years before I finally hung it up.
So your coach then was Coach Stillwell?
Yes.
And then for basketball, was it Coach Regan?
Coach Stillwell.
Oh, he coached both in basketball and
Right.
in baseball.
Yeah.
Now getting to the crux of, I guess, part of the conversation is, what was it like playing for Coach Regan? He's such an institution here. A lot of our youngsters obviously don't know who he is, and they need to be educated, and I do that as best I can. They don't realize, I mean, he was a mentor for me as a teacher, but as a player for you, what was it? What kind of impact did he have on you?
Well, he was already becoming somewhat of a legend in Morris County when we were here, even though, but that was like 16 years into his tenure. But he had already proven that he could make championship teams, create championship teams. And when you played for him, the main thing that you had to do was just do what he asked you to do, or do what he told you to do. If you did that, you didn't have a whole lot of problems. If you didn't, he had a couple of little tricks up his sleeve that guys got into, and it was a little damaging. He had one when Mike Barry was our line coach, and he used to have the pit. And Mike was a former almost high school All-American at Morristown High School. Went to Villanova, played at Villanova, and was a big guy. And the pit pitted Mike against any two linemen from our team, and that continued until one day he got in the pit with Bobby Chandis and Andy Bruder, and he came out a little bloodied from that one. So that was the last time that the pit was ever run. But there were plenty of people who didn't get through Mike during the time in the pits. Otherwise, he had the standard punishments for this and that, doing laps around the field. You felt like, Jesus, I shouldn't have to do this, or this is terrible, or that. But it was his way of disciplining you, and you had to respect that. As a man, he was just tremendous. He was extremely complimentary when you did things right, and he would yell at you. You did something wrong, but he also would say, "This is what you ought to do to correct it." So he was still teaching in the teaching mode as he was coaching, and that held true during games as well. So he was really a wonderful guy to play for. He was a great coach, a really great coach. I mean, when he finished his career, I think he had 237 wins, and that ranked third in the entire state of New Jersey, and held up for a long time. But you've got to remember, we only played 8 games. The guys before us, some of them only played 6. Guys now are playing 12 and 13, so it's easy for him to get lost in the pack. But his record stands along with anybody that's in the Coaching Hall of Fame here in the state of New Jersey.
Well, it sounds like you have some fond memories of Coach Regan, and that has permeated itself, I can tell you, across the years, even as far back as from Jules. He speaks the same way, very very demanding, but at the same time, if you did something wrong, he would make sure he corrected you, but turn the negative into a positive, and like you said, would kind of show you that, okay, well, you didn't do it right, but this is how you have to do it. And I think that's the beauty of a good coach, is that you learn from. It's very similar to what a teacher does in the classroom. Okay, so, you got a D on the paper. This is what you have to do to make it better. But then you take it outside. We know the tools are in the shed story,
Sure.
so we don't need to go through. I think that people know that enough. What about then with Coach Stillwell? Was that a different personality than Coach Regan?
Oh yeah, Harry was Harry. Harry was a completely different character. I mean, my mother and father used to come to the game to watch Harry. They didn't watch the game. He put on a show.
He was animated?
Oh, he was animated, and he would turn all sorts of colors of red blowing his top. But he was the nicest guy you could ever imagine. And, you know, people probably don't give him a lot of credit, but he was an excellent coach. I mean, he won four of the 5 state championship that the school's ever won. So maybe he won all 5 of them. No, Regan was the coach for the 5th one. But you know, Harry was very simplistic in his game. We didn't have very many exotic plays or anything. We had basic basketball plays. We played basic basketball defense, and we just had the type of athletes or players on the team that were very complementary to each other in pursuing the goals that we did. Winning the state championship my junior year, you know, the 2 of the main performers were seniors, Jim Stearns and Dan Hollis, and then myself and Al Fidello and Norman Scott were the seniors. It was just a tremendous mesh of different talents, and nobody, you know, in that year, I always like to mention to people, I do it at the basketball reunions whenever it comes up, but all 5 members of our team averaged double figures. No, and nobody was at 23 and another guy at 11. It was all from like 11 to 16, 18, 17, that was it.
Wow.
So, you know, we had a tremendous amount of sharing, and the success we had was tremendous.
And that was the same thing, so he was a character in baseball too?
Oh yeah, he was the same way. Harry never changed. Baseball is a little more, there wasn't as much tension in baseball because it's a lot slower game than basketball.
But your field, though, was, I don't know, a lot of people know this, was on the other side of the football field.
Yeah.
That's where, when I first came here, that's where it was.
Right.
A lot of people don't know that, you
Yeah.
know, that the outfield of the baseball field shared with part of the
track.
the track.
And the football field?
Right, and the football field.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's just a little bit of geographic history of the school. It wasn't, you know, up there in that complex.
Well, what was interesting was in center field, Al Fidello played center field. And if a guy hit a ground ball up the middle, out into center field, Al had to get it before it hit the track, because the track had an iron edging all the way around it that stuck up about 1.5 inches or 2 inches. And he'd go down to get the ball would hit it and pop right up over his glove. So he always had to get there before the ball got to the track.
Well, again, it sounds like both your coaches, and I'm sure, I don't know who taught physical education at the time, but I think Father Adrian, though, probably taught you how to drive a car. I
never had driver ed here.
No?
No, I don't know why. I don't remember virtually anyone in our class having driver ed. Maybe the boarding students did.
Okay.
But the day students, I don't remember any of us ever getting even asked for driver ed.
That's a good point, because you see, like I showed you before, when we, you know, there are pictures of the black and white cars,
right.
Black and white photos of the cars, and you've had a very, after Del Barton, you went on to college, you were very, you got your MBA degree in finance from Fairleigh Dickinson, and you went on to do a heck of a lot of stuff, and I guess your better half should be credited here. You've been married since 1975.
Yep.
So that's, I don't know how many years that is.
46 years. Yeah.
46 years, God bless you and your wife, and you have one daughter.
Yep.
And
4 grandchildren.
And 4 grandchildren. So somehow, I guess with all your, and you travel quite a bit, because you said how many golf courses have you played now around the world?
403.
And you have a list of all those?
I have a list of all of them.
And I figured you would, but.
I have an Excel spreadsheet of them.
Wow, that is an accomplishment of itself. But you know, as we start to wrap up here, did you obviously felt that your time here at Del Barton prepared you well for going on to school, college?
No two ways about it. You know, you grew up a lot here. I don't know what it would have been like if I'd have gone to Livingston High School, but I know it wouldn't have been as fulfilling as it was here. Part of that was probably the fact that we came here 6 days a week. We were always among our classmates and the other fellows in the school. And you just learn things. The monks and the teachers were always, you know, almost one step ahead of you, or ahead of what they should have been teaching at that time. Or one step ahead of that. You were ahead of the curve all the way as you're going through here. And when I got to college, as I said, I wasn't a great student here, and I wasn't really that great a student in college, but I was much better in college than I was here. And part of that is because of what I learned when I was here.
I just want to close with one thing that you said, which resonates with me, being a faculty member. You said that the foundation, and this is from your Hall of Honor statements, the foundation of brotherhood stems from our classmates, the monks, the lay teachers, and the coaches, which I would say is the same today as much as it was in your time here. And I found, you know, again, an important phrase that you used: we were always a team. We were always a team.
Yep.
And, you know, again, you could relate that to athletics all the time, because, you know, coaches will always say there's no I in team. You know, you can get the ball down the field. I used to say it to my lacrosse guys all the time: why are you running all the way down the field when if you just pass it, you'll get it down quicker?
Yep.
And but you were thinking of the I and not the team. Was that something that possibly Coach Regan might have said something to you about? Or was it just kind of an underlying current?
It just occurred. It was just the way we were. We were a very close-knit class of 56 kids. You know, there were always a few stragglers that were more loners than the others, but the rest of us had a tremendous bonding experience being here. And, you know, it was a team. I mean, even for our 50th anniversary, we had 27 guys come back. That's 27 out of 47 that were able to come. We still have 51 that are alive. So, you know, that was tremendous to get that. But it shows the type of respect that they have for the school as well, that after 50 years, they're still willing to come back and share their experiences with us.
Well, those things that you said there, you know, about the foundation of the brotherhood, I think in the moment, I'm not sure if our students kind of recognize that now. This was you, I think, reflecting on what had happened back then, but I think had built over time, you know, but the team aspect, I think was an extremely important, you know, is something we preach all day long.
Right.
You know,
right.
That it's not about you, okay? It's what Brian Fleury used to say: I am third. You
Yep.
know, that was, I believe it was from Gail Sayers,
Yep.
which resonated with me. And, you know, Brian was a colleague and good friend of mine.
It's
So-
too bad that, you know, Craig told me that the presentation speeches were going to be taped, were going to be videoed, and I never got a copy. I don't know whether that is done or not, but it would have been nice to have a video and play that clip as to the student body nowadays.
Yeah, I don't, that's a good question. I'll have to ask Craig about it. Any closing thoughts?
Well, you know, the school took on even more of a new meaning to me when I joined the alumni board. Saw the work that these guys were doing, and actually, you know, Jerry Jabor was president then, and then John Tonzola. they really saw the need to change what we were doing and to get to more people, to more of our alumni, and get them back. And that's why I put together the programs that I do, the reunion events, to get people back, especially those people who, you know, haven't really been in touch with the school for a long time. I, you know, correlate my correspondence and everything with Maria Van Kirk, who has a roster of everybody, all the alumni, and find out who gives, who hasn't given. And I go after a lot of the ones that haven't given, because we're now giving our time to the school because of what it's done for us. And if I can get those people back, or say even some of those people back here, then I will have done my job.
Well, it's always good to talk to you, Bob. I appreciate you taking a few moments and to kind of memorialize yourself in a way. And again, this will be put together and available for future generations, and I'm sure they'll appreciate your wits and wisdom and reflections on your career.
No, that's great. I appreciate it, and I'm glad to do it.
Thank you, my friend.
You're
It was
welcome.
great to talk to you again.
Yep, always.